Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Today, we're diving into a really provocative critique of AI. It argues that the real problem isn't the technology itself, but a pattern of manipulation that started a whopping 75 years ago, long before anyone ever wrote a single line of code for a chatbot.
Think about all the chatter around artificial intelligence right now. It's all about superintelligence, robots taking our jobs, existential risk. But what if that whole conversation is missing the point? What if the real danger is something much older, much more human, and AI is just the newest, most powerful tool for the job?
And that's the core of the argument we're digging into today. A critic named Guy Lakeman says that if you really want to understand the manipulation happening in today's AI, you've got to rewind the clock, way back, all the way to the 1950s and the dawn of mass media advertising. Yep, your grandparents' TV.
So, this timeline here, this is the map for our journey today. It draws a straight line from the consumer culture that blew up after the war, right through the crazy acceleration of social media and leads directly to the AI systems we are all dealing with right now. It's the story of how a single method of influence got stronger and stronger over 75 years. Okay, so let's jump into this first stage. Right after World War II, there was this incredible sense of shared purpose, People had worked together. But according to Lakeman, a fundamental shift in our values was deliberately engineered, and it completely changed the definition of success for millions of people. Lakeman uses this really simple metaphor to make his point. He says society went from being the Smiths, a model built on community, on partnership, on fighting a common enemy together, to becoming the Joneses. And you know what that means? A culture driven by competition, by consumerism, and that never-ending desire to have the next bright, shiny object. And here's the thing. According to Lakeman, this didn't just happen by accident. Oh no. He argues it was the result of a 60-year project of social manipulation, all done through mass advertising. It successfully taught us that success wasn't something you built with your community, it was something you could buy. So let's fast forward a bit. Let's see how this old advertising model wasn't just copied by the internet. It was basically put on hyperdrive. The basic way of influencing people, that stayed the same, but the speed and the precision were about to change forever.
And the crucial difference here is the speed of the feedback loop. I mean, think about it. Back in the 50s, advertisers had to wait weeks for Nielsen ratings that came from just a small sample of people. Today, big tech gets instant feedback from billions of us, letting them target us in real time, making trillions of dollars. The engine of influence went from a biplane to a rocket ship.
And that brings us right to today. In this view, AI chatbots aren't some brand new invention. No. They're the perfection of that 75-year-old engine. They are the ultimate tool for influencing how we think and what we do on a scale we've never seen before.
Now, to really understand how this works, we have to get our heads around this key concept. Lakeman argues that AI models don't just guess the most likely next word. Instead, they operate on what he calls a preferred weight of consensus. Just think of it like a thumb on the scale. A built-in bias towards certain words and ideas, a bias that, you guessed it, can be deliberately shaped by outsiders.
And this creates this incredibly powerful two-part cycle. So in the outer loop, you've got advertisers feeding the system their preferred words and ideas. Then the AI uses those preferred weights when it spits out content for you. And then comes the inner loop, your response to that content. What you click, what you type, feeds right back into the system, which just reinforces the original bias. It becomes a self-perpetuating cycle of influence that just gets stronger and stronger.
So who does Lakeman think this entire loop is designed to target? Well, this is where he makes his most controversial claim. He actually references Plato's idea of the rabble, and he argues that this manipulation is most effective on what he identifies as 84% of the population. Now that is a really provocative and, for a lot of people, a deeply problematic claim about who's most susceptible to this kind of thing.
Okay, so after painting this pretty bleak picture of what he calls social psychological corruption, Lakeman doesn't just leave us there. He actually proposes a solution, something he calls a safety valve, that's designed to put the control back where it belongs, in the hands of the individual.
He lays out a really stark contrast between two possible futures. On one hand, you've got the current big tech model, which he calls greed-based and paternalistic. Basically, they know best. On the other hand is what he calls machine intelligence. This is a vision for open-source, ethics-based AI, where individuals, not massive corporations, own and control their own tools for thinking and for judging what's true.
So his solution really boils down to two key actions. First, transparency. He says we have to demand that we can monitor the weights inside big tech systems to see if they're being manipulated. And second, empowerment. Building and promoting private, open-source AI that lets each of us sharpen our own critical thinking, totally free from that corporate influence.
So we've just walked through one critic's really powerful and, yeah, definitely provocative argument that the huge challenge of AI is actually deeply rooted in a 75-year history of manipulation. And it leaves us with a critical question, not just about technology, but about ourselves. In a world where information is constantly being shaped and weighted and pushed on us, how do we find the truth? And maybe more importantly, how do we learn to trust our own intelligence?